Can I ask you to take your seats, please? Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I want to welcome those in the room and those who are joining us online. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your early Sunday morning to be here with us. I'd like to recognize the following past presidents who are either here with us in the room or have joined us online. Elena Latsky, immediate past president, Marla Dan, Debbie Eisenberg, Marilyn Libin, Marion Mayman, and Sandy Martin. Thank you for being here. I also want to thank Neil Dankoff, who was unable to join us today. We are at Candy Gallery at Hotel X, for those who are joining online, in Neil Dankoff's beautiful gallery. And Neil very generously offered to host us. And we want to extend our deepest gratitude to him for his very gracious and generous donation. Being that a quorum of members is present in person or virtually, and notice of the meeting has been sent to all members of the corporation, including our auditor, this meeting is constituted for the transaction of business. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. According to the Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, for which our directors and officers are also members of the corporation, it is only these individuals who are permitted to vote. In person, please raise your hand. And those on Zoom should write yay, nay, or abstain, or need more discussion into the chat. The chat is being monitored by Jennifer Arillo, and she will advise us of your vote. As you'll hear from the financial report later in the program, our organization continues to thrive and grow. We are building a larger donor base of supporters and have attracted nearly 1,000 new donors since our last AGM. As I stand before you as CHW's CEO, it is with a heavy heart. I never thought that I would be leading this organization through such a horrific time in the history of the Jewish people and of the state of Israel. I ask those present to please stand for a moment of silence. You may be seated. I took on the role of CEO during COVID, and yet we got through that time together. But now we have an enormous challenge. This is an unprecedented war on humanity, of good versus evil, holding hostage to 240 men, women, children, and babies, and a war that will take many lives. CHW's support of our partners in Israel is needed now more than ever before, and our opportunity to engage the next generation of supporters is more accessible. The global rise of anti-Semitism has magnified how marginalized we feel as Jews here in Canada. This has created a shift, and the growing support for CHW is felt through the hundreds of new donors who made gifts to our emergency appeal campaign over the past month, and through the many volunteers of all ages looking to join existing chapters or start new chapters. This became apparent this past week as Lynn Gilman, National President, Anita Friedman, World-WIZO Chairperson, and I traveled across the country together, meeting so many new people. At this point, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Anita Friedman. Anita is a very passionate volunteer for WIZO since 1995. She has served in numerous positions in WIZO, both in the United States and in Israel, before being elected its top position in January of 2020. From 2014, when she returned to Israel, she served as deputy chairperson of WIZO's fundraising division. And in 2016, she was elected its chair. And she has spearheaded tens of millions of dollars for numerous and diverse WIZO projects, such as women's shelters, youth villages, and daycare centers, and more. In January of 2020, Anita was elected chairperson of WIZO at Israel World WIZO. And as you know, WIZO is Israel's largest educational and social welfare organization, which operates 800 institutions, major projects, and with 6,000 employees and thousands of volunteers. She is responsible for the World WIZO movement that includes 38 federations around the world. And under her leadership, she very successfully navigated the organization through the crisis of COVID while instituting far-reaching organizational reforms and changes. She was born in Bogota, Colombia, is fluent in Hebrew, Spanish, and English, and I witnessed her speaking Spanish in an Uber on Thursday, very fluently. She holds a BA from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, is married, has 3 children and 3 grandchildren, and she lives in Tel Aviv full-time when she's not traveling around the world. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Anita Friedman.
Thank you, Lisa. Dear friends, I would like to open with a few words about WIZO, which stands for Women's International Zionist Organization. Founded 103 years ago in England, we are Israel's largest educational and social welfare organization, working hand in hand with the Israeli government in providing diverse services through 800 institutions and programs, touching the lives of thousands of Israelis from birth till golden age in dozens of communities throughout the country. Our diverse network includes 167 daycare centers caring for over 11,000 infants and toddlers from 3 months to 3 years old. We operate 5 youth villages and 3 special high schools, educating some 6,000 youth from age 12 to 18. 2 shelters for women victims of domestic violence, 18 foster homes and emergency frameworks, numerous programs for girls, women, and families, and much, much more. Thousands of WIZO volunteers work with vulnerable populations in over 40 communities around the country. And our second-hand clothing chain with 50 stores serves underprivileged Israelis and contributes to environmental sustainability. WIZO is also an international movement of Zionist women with over 100,000 members around 38 countries. WIZO is like the film that won the Oscar for Best Picture this year. Everything, everywhere, all the time. That's what we are. It is this scope and diversity what enables us to have such a huge impact on Israeli society, and it enables us to touch the lives of so many people in so many different ways. This has never been truer than during the current war, and it is on this that I would like to focus my remarks. Today, I stand before you not only as the leader of this global movement, but as a witness to the incredible spirit of the people of Israel in the face of unimaginable adversity. On October 7th, during Simchat Torah, a day that should have marked the beginning of a new chapter and symbolized the end of the Tishrei holidays, our world was turned upside down. In Israel, Simchat Torah traditionally marks the conclusion of the Tishrei holidays and signifies a fresh start. On this day, we read the final Torah portion, Vezot Bracha, and immediately follow it with the first portion, Bereshit. It's a time for us to return to our daily routines, renewed and re-energized after a period of rest and reflection. However, this year, on October 7th, during Simchat Torah, Hamas militants stormed into nearby Israeli towns from Gaza, resulting in the tragic loss of over 1,400 Israeli and foreign citizens, and the kidnapping of at least 241 Israelis and foreigners in a surprising and unprecedented attack. Hundreds are still missing. The weight of this great tragedy hangs heavily over our hearts, and our vision of the future is clouded by the profound trauma that has befallen our beloved nation. You can go to slide 16. I would like to emphasize that we are acutely aware of the deep distress that you and all those who love Israel around the world have been feeling since that terrible day of October 7th. In some ways, I think it's even harder for you than it is for us, because every morning you go out into a world that does not share the terrible shock and grief that you feel. The words Einsatzgruppen and Babi Yar do not pop into their heads. Their world did not turn upside down on October 7th. Experiencing this traumatic time in Israel is in some ways easier than being far away. There, everyone around us is sharing the same experience. After all, mourning is meant to be done in a group. That's the role of the Shiva in the Jewish tradition, to mourn together. As individuals and families, we may have been overwhelmed by the grief and outrage, but WIZO, whose fundamental responsibility is to the people of Israel, could not allow ourselves to be paralyzed by this tragedy, and we sprang right into action. Our first task was to reach out to our entire WIZO community in Israel, our 6,000 employees and 2,500 volunteers, to make sure everyone was accounted for and offer initial aid and comfort to those affected by the massacre and its nightmarish aftermath. Every one of us is going through difficult times, and nearly every home and family has been touched by this tragedy. Some have lost loved ones to murder or kidnapping. Many others, all of us, have husbands, brothers, children, and grandchildren who have been drafted for emergency service in the IDF, most of them on the dangerous front lines of the war. 90 of our WIZO employees have been evacuated from their homes, and 70 of them have been called up for emergency military service. We are in touch with all these families, providing assistance and a loving embrace to every single one of them. Every week, we do this every week. Within the days of the start of the war, we began putting multiple initiatives in motion, such as convincing the government to allow us to open 11 emergency daycare centers serving the children of critical medical personnel in 7 major hospitals around the country, so that their parents could be free to perform their life-saving work on more than 4,000 Israelis wounded on October 7th. For about 10 days, these 11 WIZO centers were the only daycare centers open in Israel. One of these daycare centers is in the Shamir Medical Center, a wonderful institution supported by CHW. I personally visited this daycare center and had the privilege to meet some of the parents who work in the hospital. One of them, a scientist who works in the pathology department, told me something that I cannot get out of my mind. As a pathologist, she normally works with tissue samples to help doctors with their diagnosis. But in the first few weeks of the war, she spent all her time identifying bodies of the Israeli murdered by Hamas. It's an awful reality. Another emotional meeting I had that week was with an Ethiopian woman named Ziva Taka, whose 21-year-old son, Binyamin, was killed on the first day of the war while serving as a soldier in the Golani Infantry Brigade. Ziva's personal story encompasses all the different phases of WIZO. Her son Binyamin was a graduate of WIZO Nachlat Yehuda's youth village. 15 years ago, Ziva and her children spent a year in our WIZO shelter for women victims of domestic violence in Jerusalem. And then after she left the shelter, she worked for many years as a daycare teacher at the WIZO Daycare Center in Beit HaKerem in Jerusalem, a few meters from the shelter. We spent a long time talking to and comforting Ziva and crying together. Binyamin has an older sister who is also a graduate from WIZO Nachlat Yehuda, and a younger brother who idolized Binyamin, who was like a father to him. And the young boy, of course, was totally broken. You know, in the Ethiopian community culture in Israel, as in many immigrant cultures, the oldest children in the family, the ones that have grown up in Israel, serve as a bridge between their immigrant parents and the society around them. So this was huge, was a huge, huge loss for the family in so many ways. Getting back to what WIZO is doing on the ground. Our volunteers are active all over the country, caring for people in their community and working to bring food, clothing, and other assistance to the people of the South and to our soldiers. We have launched a campaign called With WIZO You're Never Alone, which offers a wide range of support services provided by WIZO volunteers to women whose spouses have been called to military service. These volunteers will babysit, do your food shopping, help you cook, and of course, lend a sympathetic ear and a loving embrace. The base of our volunteer work in Israel has always been WIZO Israel's branches and second-hand shops, bigutiot. Most were closed at the beginning of the war, but more and more of these have gradually reopened, and we are now up to 50 centers open. But even in places forced closed by the war, our devoted volunteers found ways to organize and work to benefit those who needed help the most. We also have increased the hours and staffing of our 3 national telephone hotlines, which have been flooded with calls. One for advice of parents of small children, one for the victims of domestic violence, and one for men in the cycle of domestic violence before they become violent. 3 of our WIZO youth villages, including CHW Hadassim and Nahalal, are home to 250 participants in the Naale program. These are Jewish teenagers from around the world who come to Israel to live and study. Many of these children came to us last year as refugees from war-torn Ukraine. Imagine the trauma they are experiencing going through another terrible war. But we're doing everything we can to ease their fears and homesickness. I visited one of these villages, WIZO Nachlat Yehuda in Rishon LeZion, and discovered that Nachlat's dining room has been turned into a regional center for packing and distributing care packages to soldiers, residents of the South, and local residents of Rishon LeZion who are in distress. We have a video of this. Hi, everybody. I'm in WIZO Nachlat Yehuda. I'm in the cafeteria, which has been made out for a logistic center in this area in Rishon. We don't only give to our kids, they give back, and they learn how to give back to the society. And every day we send from here packages to soldiers and needy families from around the country. We met with some of the Naale students, and it was amazing to see how happy they were despite the war. We came to lift their spirits, and instead they lifted ours. They are so grateful to WIZO. They praise the wonderful food, the level of studies, everything. When I asked what was lacking, at the beginning they didn't want to share it with us, but then they said, we need more laptops and computers, and we would love a ping pong table. Yeah, children. From there, we visited another WIZO youth village, WIZO Gan Vanov in Petah Tikva, which was hosting over 150 displaced Israelis from both the South and the North. These are people who have lost their homes. Another one, I think. Who have lost their homes or were forced to leave them. We met with a number of women with their children. I think you have to go forward, slide 35 and 36. That's it, those are the pictures. We met with a number of women with their children. There were mothers, kids, grandmothers. Most of their husbands have been called to the army. I was deeply touched, but not at all surprised to see the incredible hospitality we're extending to these families. They are being smothered in kindness and generosity, being fed delicious and plentiful food with all kinds of recreational and educational activities being provided to them, and so importantly, to their children. The village staff has gone all out to help them, including much needed emotional and psychological support, which is the next big thing. It was so beautiful to see the children roaming around the open green spaces, playing with animals in the petting zoo, and simply being in a place that is so calm, loving, and therapeutic. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis have been displaced from their homes. And Israeli hotels are filled with people from places like Sderot and Ashkelon. You can go, yeah. But I can tell you with absolute certainty that the people of WIZO and Vanov have been having an experience unlike any other, including those staying at the fanciest hotels, because there is nothing like the total loving embrace of WIZO. We have here a video again.
אנחנו פתחנו את הכפר לפני שבועיים, ביום ראשון כבר בערב. שמחנו מאוד לקלוט מפונים מהצפון, מהדרום.
איזה אנשים, אין דברים כאלה, באמת. המנכ"ל שכל יום מגיע ושואל מה שלומנו, אמהות הבית, המדריכים, השינשינים, כאילו התגייסות שלא ראיתי דברים כאלה, באמת, משהו מדהים.
במהלך השבועיים האחרונים היו פה כ-130 איש בממוצע, מדובר על כ-30 משפחות ומשהו כמו 50 ילדים.
מהרגע שהגענו שאלו אותנו כמה ילדים ואיזה פעילויות הם רוצים, ודאגו להביא את הפעילויות שהילדים ביקשו.
אני גם חייב לציין שעיריית פתח תקווה ומשרד החינוך גם הביאו לנו לפה 2 גננות, כך שאנחנו היינו משופעים בעזרה רבה.
אני רוצה בהזדמנות זו באמת להודות לרשת ויצו ולהודות באמת לצוות של גן ונוף שעושים עבודה מדהימה והם שם בשבילנו, ומקווה נזכה לימים טובים יותר שנוכל גם אנחנו להחזיר להם.
CHW Hadassah is also hosting a number of families of displaced Israelis from the south. Here is a wonderful video of a reunion between an Hadassah graduate. No, you don't have that video. I guess you have the other video. We have 2 videos about Hadassah. This is a video of children of Hadassah coming to our headquarters to sell the produce so they can help children with the money that they make. So you can show this video.
Hi, my name is Lee.
And my name is Omar.
And we are from WIZO Hadassah.
And we sell all of this and grow all of this in WIZO Hadassah. We are selling all of this in order to support the children and the teenagers that don't have a home like us.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, WIZO Hadassah.
Everybody. And we also have in Hadassah a number of families displaced from the south. And we had a beautiful video of one ex-graduate from Hadassah that came back, and his teacher that took care of him when he was in Hadassah, received him and his family.
קוראים לי ליאור, זאת אימא שלי. אימא שלי בכל מובן גידלה אותי מאז שאני פספוס בן 14. עם כל הצערות שעשיתי והכל, תמיד קיבלתי את החיבוק ואת האהבה. אחרי 14 שנה צמחתי, פרחתי, אני בשדרות, וקרה מה שקרה, אין לי, הבית נפגע מיריות, מקסאמים. אחרי כל כך הרבה זמן בממ"ד עם 3 הילדים. המקום הראשון שקיבל אותנו ואמר לנו, אתם נשארים פה, זה הבית שלכם, הכל בסדר. בדה שלי הייתה מאוד בסטרס, כי לא יצא מהממ"ד, היינו נעולים בממ"ד, ניסו לפתוח לנו כמה פעמים את הבית, ויריות בתוך הבית. אז הילדה של רחל, היא גאיה, פשוט תפסה אותה ביד, בואי. הילדה שלי פתאום נפתחה, פתאום היא ראתה עוד משהו, תהילה הייתה בפנימיה, לקחה אותה, נכנסו אליהם לבית, היא פעם ראשונה פתחה טלוויזיה אחרי שבוע, שיחקה במשחקים, אם נצלם את הילדה שלי, תראו אותה כאילו ילדה רגילה. והבן שלי הוא גם מסתובב פה, זה מדהים לראות אותו איכשהו. המזל שלי שיש לי ויצו הדסים, מאז שאני קטן דאגו לי, וגם היום כשאני בוגר באבא, זה עדיין הבית שלי, זה עדיין המקום שדואג לי, בלי פסיק או בלי שום תח, תמיד. תודה רבה.
תודה רבה, תודה.
Our Parents' Home, a facility for the elderly with 100, Karen, you can put slide number 41, please. That's it. With 110 residents between 75 and 105 years old, including 35 Holocaust survivors, it's operating. It was all the time operating. And we are taking good care of these wonderful people who have contributed so much to our country. Here too, we took in displaced families of Israelis from the south and we're housing them in the parents' home. To give you an idea of the kind of people we are hosting, one family from Beersheba is a single mother struggling with cancer, her two parents, both over 90, and a granddaughter we have been able to host these families thanks to the generous support of donors from WIZO federations around the world. Next one is we have continued to support 140 women and 250 children in 9 different communities who are part of our safety net program, which has been generously supported by CHW in recent years. This is a diverse support program for women after they leave the domestic violence shelters to help ensure that they are not compelled to return to their violent spouses. These women face constant challenges, even in normal times, but the situation is so much worse, as you can imagine, during war times. Here too, we're benefiting from the support of our federations. These are just a few of the many initiatives that WIZO is taking during this time. Every day brings new initiatives, new ways of helping people. I am pleased to inform you that a number of our key services are gradually returning to operation. We're trying to get back to life as it was before. As of today, we have reopened 146 of our daycare centers out of a total of 167. There are now over 7,220 babies and toddlers being cared for again by our devoted team. That means that parents can go out to work, businesses can open. Most of the centers are not operating at full capacity because we've had to limit the number of children in each center. Why? Because if there is a red alert for incoming rockets, a frequent occurrence in most places in the country, there is no way that the teachers can move 70 babies and toddlers from their classrooms to the bomb shelters in 90 seconds. We tried. We made a run for it. It's impossible. Our high schools are also reopening, and we hope that the developments in the war will not force Israel to again close these educational institutions, which would be terrible for the kids, their parents, and the economy. Let's be optimistic. Most of our services that care for the most at-risk populations are operating. They were always operating. We never closed. Our women's shelters, the foster and family units such as Neve WIZO and our Mishpachtonim, and emergency centers in our youth villages, including CHW Hadassah, our 2 major centers in Beersheba for extreme high-risk teenage girls and young women, Adi and Makom Balev. These are girls that live on the streets, which were closed from the beginning of the war, have reopened, but even while they were closed, our professional teams and volunteers were keeping in close daily touch with all these young women, providing them with food and any other physical needs, and providing counseling and support to help them get through this difficult period. There is so much more I could tell you about, so many stories of tragedy. We've lost a lot of our graduates from our schools, or heroism and of simply enormous love and endless giving. This is WIZO. WIZO is also active in the international efforts concerning the 241 hostages, many of them women, small children, and elderly. We have marshaled our powers of soft diplomacy and launched a global campaign demanding their immediate release. We call on you, our members around the world, to join us by appealing to local and federal governments in your countries. I cannot conclude without mentioning the absolute incredible show of solidarity we have gotten from all our 38 federations around the world, from you, all of you. The international emergency campaign we launched has been an overwhelming success, bringing millions of shekels so urgently need to keep our organization running when there is so much uncertainty, and financing urgent needs of the moment. CHW, you have been a great supporter and partner during this critical time. CHW devotion and successful efforts to bring urgent needed resources to Israel are moving and very, very much appreciated. Thank you. The donations you have made are imperative in order to be able to continue giving our services to the neediest Israelis. Our collaboration with CHW, Hadassah-WIZO Canada, is rooted in a remarkable history. It harks back to a time when two visionary organizations, each with its own unique mission and identity, came together to achieve common goals. This partnership, which has spanned decades, you can move to slide 55. This partnership, which has spanned decades, has been a symbol of the power of shared vision and values. CHW long history and partnership with WIZO over the years has contributed to the vision and success of our long-standing projects in Israel, including our youth villages. We especially would like to thank CHW for the 4-year commitment to support the Nahalal Tech program at Nachlat Youth Village. Here is a short film about the program.
I was born in Russia in 1990. My father was a political activist, and my father understood there is no real future for me to success in my life.
When I was 14 years old, I started to understand that I have no future in Russia. Therefore, I took this opportunity and I did the Aliyah. I moved to Israel as a part of Na'aleh program.
כפר הנוער ויצו נהלל הוא בית ל-300 ילדים, תלמידים ותלמידות, שבחרו לחיות כאן.
הילדים באים לבד, אין פה אף אחד ושום דבר. אנחנו הבית, אנחנו האמא והאבא של אותם ילדים למשך כל התקופה שהם נשארים.
My family stayed in Russia. I didn't have here any family. It was very difficult.
I came to Israel alone with no family, and very fast I was accepted, and I found myself a new family.
WIZO Nahalal's team was always here for me. I remember my first Madrich, Lior. Any reason that I needed help, he was always here to help me.
Here in WIZO Nahal, there were a lot of people who believed in me, who wanted me to succeed, even though they didn't even know me.
כפר הנוער ויצו נהלל הוא המקום היחיד בארץ שקולט תלמידים מכל העולם במסגרת תוכנית נעלה לתוכנית נהללטק. בתוכנית הזאת למעשה אנחנו מפתחים את הילדים להשתלב במקצועות ההנדסה, ההייטק, הטכנולוגיה, הסייבר במדינת ישראל. אנחנו מחברים אותם לעולם ההייטק הישראלי, קורסים איכותיים במסגרת האקדמיה כבר בשנות התיכון שלהם, ביקורים, מפגשים עם סטארט-אפיסטים ישראלים, דבר שכל ילד יכול לחלום עליו. התלמידים בנהללטק נחשפים אליו מכיתה ט' שהם מגיעים אלינו, לויצו נהלל.
I think everyone has to have someone who believes in him. And for me, it's Oleg, the chemistry and physics teacher here in WIZO Nahal, who believed in me. He made me believe in myself, and thanks to his support, I really excelled in my high school, and I also finished 4 years bachelor's of engineering in Technion with summa cum laude.
כמעט 98-99% מהחבר'ה שמגיעים אלינו נשארים פה, הולכים ללמוד, מתגייסים לצבא.
So I started to feel like Israel was my home, and I really loved it. I decided to go to the army, and I felt that I need to serve this country in a combat unit. Now I study in the Technical University. I almost finished my first year here.
עבורי זאת זכות אדירה להיות חלק מהעשייה הציונית המרגשת הזאת שמלווה את תלמידי תוכנית נהללטק בשנות התפתחותם. הדבר הגדול שנעשה כאן זה אותו דבר שנעשה פה כבר 100 שנים. מפתחים ובונים מסלולים להצלחה לצעירים וצעירות ובונים את החברה הישראלית.
My dream is to continue to my academic studies, doing a PhD, and to build my family in Israel. I feel like I received a lot and I want to give back as much as I can. WIZO Nahal for me represents Israel in its values of helping others.
WIZO Nahal really connected me to Israel. I understood what is it to be a Jewish. I want to build my family here. I want to start working here. I want my parents and my sister to come to Israel. Thanks to WIZO, Israel really became my home.
Another amazing project supported by CHW at Nahalal Youth Village is the dairy farm. This year, a donation was made specifically for the improvement of the infrastructure and conditions in the dairy farm and creating a cheese-producing kitchen with the goal to increase the economic stability of the youth village by improving conditions in the production of milk in the dairy barn. Milk production has taken place at Nahalal for nearly 100 years and has always been an important source of income for the youth village. Nahalal's dairy farm is also known for the outstanding quality and quantity of its milk. And this year, it was ranked #1 among all the agricultural schools in Israel. This wonderful donation will allow us this important initiative to continue and bring even more stability to the youth village. But your support goes beyond your generous philanthropy. Although you are far away, we do feel your love and deep concern very strongly, and I felt that during this whole week. So I go back really full. We are one family, WIZO, Israel, the Jewish people. We will survive, we will overcome, and we will flourish as long as we stay together. Am Israel Chai, ביחד ננצח.
Anita, thank you so much for giving those remarks and for your update and for traveling with us for this last week and for making such a special effort to be here with us under these terrible circumstances. We really appreciate you coming to Canada. Thank you. Now we'll turn to the business portion of the meeting, and we will be approving the minutes of the AGM held the November 20th, 2022. So I just want to remind everybody that the people who are voting are members of the board of directors, the current board of directors. And what I mean is the board of directors of 2022, 2023. Yes, that includes you, Jenny.
I move that we approve the minutes of the AGM of November 20th, 2022. I call for a seconder. Jenny Blitz. And now I ask if there are any errors or omissions. I remind the people who are virtual, if you're a board of directors, to please put your vote in the chat. All those who approve, raise your hand here or put your answer in the chat. Okay, thank you. Anybody with a disapprove? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are passed. Thank you very much. And now we move to the financial part of the presentation. I call upon Yuri Kotowski, who is our auditor. He is with Fruitman Cates LLP, to go over the financial statement of the fiscal year 2022-2023. Yuri, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Yuri Kostowski. I'm a partner at Fruitman Cates, responsible for the annual audit of your financial statements. I'd like to start out by thanking Lisa, Tammy, and their team for all of their help in making this a smooth audit. I guess the most important part of the audit, whether people acknowledge it or not, is the actual audit report. This is a clean audit report, so no issues noted, no problems. It's perfectly fine. There's a qualified opinion. That's a normal qualification for charities. It basically says that we are unable to verify revenue that is given to the organization because it's not like a profitable company where every piece of revenue has a cost. And that's a standard qualification for charitable organizations. So the balance sheet is broken up. It's separated by the general fund and the endowment fund. Endowment fund are donations to the organization where the principal is to be maintained in an investment, and the investment income is used to operate, used by the general fund for its operations. The idea is someone gives an endowment, that endowment is there into the future and continues to grow and provide for the organization. Looking at the balance sheet, cash is cash. Endowment cash is endowments. There are two parts. Endowments received very close to the year end that hadn't been invested yet, and some investments that were redeemed right at year end. Government remittances receivable, those are PSB rebates. It's the government of Canada provides charities with an additional some help by allowing you to rebate a portion of the HST on your costs. Short-term investments, those are just GICs. Prepaid expenses, just some subscriptions and prepaid rent and some prepaid travel costs. Current portion of loans receivable during the year, there were loans given to Israeli businesses that mature in January 2026, I believe. And those are the portion of the payments that we're expecting in the next fiscal year. And advances to the endowment fund, these are amounts that the endowment fund owes to the operating, to the general fund. It's just an entry. It's just a sort of a delta of what we've taken from investment income and not. Long-term investments, we have the other portion of the loans receivable. Those are going to change every year because those were donated in Israeli shekels, and so they need to be valued every single year at the foreign exchange rate at year end. We have investments, those are the endowment fund investments, all recorded at fair market value, and some capital assets. For our liabilities, we got accounts payable, which are just routine payables, fairly consistent with last year. Just some amounts owing to vendors and some salary and vacation accruals. Deferred contributions, there's two components. First, we have the component to the general fund. These are donations that you receive that are restricted for a specific purpose. And we record them as deferred revenue until those donations are deployed for that purpose. Speaking to Tammy this morning, I think they've just been deployed. So they've all been cleared. And the endowment fund, deferred contributions, that's investment income that is going to be deployed in accordance with the donor's wishes. It just hasn't happened yet. Advances from the general fund, that's just the other side of the advances too that we saw on the previous page. And there's a note for commitments and contingencies. We'll get to that in the notes, but that's like a lease agreement and I believe a letter of credit. Okay, moving on to the statement of operations. We can see here that donations are up, which is excellent. We have investment income earned on some cash that's in the general fund and also the investment income that's earned in the endowment fund. We have expenditures are broken up into projects, fundraising, education, and donor relations, administrative and general, and amortization, which is just depreciating your capital assets. So we can see that what's been deployed for projects has increased, which is what we would expect. We have fundraising costs that have increased, which we would expect given the increase in donations during the year. I believe the fundraising costs are about 32% of your total donations. Fundraising has gone up mainly due to some extra hires that have been hired by the organization to help with the fundraising. There was the Journey 4 Impact trip to Israel, and just larger and more events. And as I think everyone knows, costs have just generally gone up. So food and the services for these events just cost a bit more. Administrative in general, it's increased mainly due to a little bit of payroll. There's been an improvement to the online donation system that's I think in progress at year end. And so just some additional IT security measures. Okay. Moving on from the statement of operations, we have the statement of changes in equity. It's basically your net assets of the organization, which shows that we have a balance end of year of $1 million in the general fund roughly, and $15 million in the endowment fund. Statement of cash flows for this particular organization is not going to give you a lot of extra information. Mainly it shows you the loans receivable in Canadian dollars that were deployed and just some acquisitions of capital assets. That's the main takeaway from the cash flow statement. So spent about 17 grand on capital assets and 300,000 deploying the loans receivable. Any questions on the balance sheet and income statement? Nope. Okay. The notes are fairly standard and consistent with the ones that we had prior years. So these are just your accounting policies, just as the methodology that we use to record the transactions in the financial statements. Capital asset depreciation policies. There we describe in the bottom, our short-term investments consist of GICs. Here we specify the loans receivable. We actually just went out of our way to give a little bit of context to the loan receivable so that users of the financial statements wouldn't think that that was something used for actual investment. It's more of a charitable program, so we ensured to include that detail in the note. Then we have some information about the endowment fund, kind of the breakdown of the investment types, and just some context there in terms of fair market value, broker, like regular securities that are traded on the market versus private equity investments. Here we have our capital asset, just a breakdown of the cost and the accumulated amortization. Here is some detail on deferred contributions. So it shows sort of the opening continuity of the opening balance during the year, amounts received during the year, and then amounts recognized during the year to get us to our ending balance for each the general and endowment funds. There's the commitment and contingency note that I spoke of, which is the letter of credit, which I believe is used for one of the lotteries. Yeah. Next is the breakdown of the projects. This is just the project number. This is your charitable activity and broken down by category. Next is just a disclosure about some life insurance policies that members have endowed to the organization. And some financial instrument risks, liquidity, currency, and market risk. You have currency risk with some of your assets being held in US dollars and Israeli shekels, and you have market risk on your endowment investments. Here we have a breakdown of the fundraising and education and donor relations. So you can see there that, you know, salaries has gone up significantly, and same with fundraising and education, which are basically what I described earlier, which was some new hires and more events and a trip to the Journey for Impact trip to Israel. Administrative, we can see similarly, we have an increase in salaries and increase in computer expense, which is the online donor platform and some IT security. And those are the financial statements. Are there any questions? You gonna make it easy on me? Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for having me here today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Yuri, for your presentation. As treasurer of the board of directors, I will be making the following two motions. I ask that only the current board of directors, who are also members of the corporation and have voting privileges, raise their hand and vote, including those members who have joined us online. I move that members of the corporation approve the final financial statements as presented by Fruitman Cates LLP. Can I have a seconder? Tova Train. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, you can see in Jenny. Are there any, is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried unanimously. I move that members of the corporation approve Fruitman Cates LLP as auditor for fiscal 2023-2024. Can I have a seconder? Lynn. Oh, okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Moved unanimously.
Before I start my president's report, just for those who, I know everybody here knows who I am, but anybody who is virtual, it's Lynn Gilman, and I'm the CHW National President. Thank you all for being here and for being online for my very, very first AGM as the National President. And the report I'm going to give you is about our partners and projects, what has happened in the past year, and an update on what they are doing since October the 7th during the war. And I've divided it up in by silos, so education, healthcare, and social services. The first one is Neri Bloomfield Academy of Design. Next one. Yeah. During the 2022-2023 academic year, NBA awarded 16 scholarships to select students. The college awarded scholarships to 11 students with difficult socioeconomic backgrounds, 10 scholarships of $1,673 Canadian, and 1 scholarship of $1,000 Canadian. These are instrumental in enabling students who otherwise would not have been able to pursue a college degree. Additionally, the college awarded 5 scholarships of $3,333 Canadian to students who excelled in their studies. The students were selected based on their evaluation of their admission status and stats, their first semester grades, point average, letter of recommendation by the head of their respective departments, and personal interviews. In the competitive academic arena, these scholarships are very critical in attracting and retaining outstanding students. We are deeply grateful for the LD Foundation's generosity, enabling the college to award these scholarships, which were a significant contribution to these students. It ensures these talented students are students with financial difficulty can pursue a degree and advance professionally within Israeli society and culture. Neri Bloomfield College, since October 7th, the Department of Fashion and Design galvanized its lecturers, its students, its graduates, designers, and volunteers in sewing equipment for special units of the IDF on the battlefield. NBA garnered donations from Israeli citizens for the material, and at the time of writing this report, produced 300 pieces and continued to work with impetus and to meet the great demand. CHW supported NBA's initiative with the purchase of 2 industrial sewing machines and another special piece of sewing equipment, helping to speed up the production of equipment being supplied to the IDF. Hadassah Academic College. In honor and recognition of Alana Elias's recent 30-year anniversary, yes, she has been with us for 30 years with CHW, we have committed to fund a student scholarship at the Blender Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at HAC, Hadassah Academic College, in Jerusalem. Funds were raised and endowed as part of a recent initiative last June, and Alana was recognized and celebrated in Montreal. The Alana Elias Scholarship for Students' Excellence will provide annual recognition of a female student who is excelling in their studies. The scholarship will help provide a $1,000 tuition support for a needy student so they can reach their full potential and make a positive impact in their community and beyond through the creation of a startup business or the next big idea. Through this scholarship, we hope to continue Alana's legacy of supporting and empowering women, to encourage and recognize the next generation of female leaders in business and innovation in Israel. The scholarship recipient for the 2022-2023 academic year was Gal Mishali. Alongside many of Israeli leading public institutions, HAC delayed the initiation of the academic year, and it's operating under emergency conditions. HAC's Dr. Chaim Katzman was a lecturer at the Department of Politics and Communication and was unfortunately and terribly killed in his home on the kibbutz Holid during the massacre. Over 200 students and some staff have been mobilized to serve in the Army's Reserve Unit, and HAC is doing everything possible to support them with scholarships, psychological support, and special learning accommodations. HAC's Department of Optometry and Vision Science has commenced an initiative to administer free vision tests and offer free eyeglasses for survivors and refugees of Israel from the Gaza border communities who were temporarily being housed in hotels in Israel. Many of their eyeglasses, and that's hundreds of people, were lost or damaged during the massacre and during the evacuation of the region. We will go on to healthcare. Shamir Medical Center. Only 37 miles from the Gaza border, Shamir Medical Center, formerly known as Asaf Harafeh, has been treating dozens of victims since the early hours of the murderous attack on Israeli citizens on October the 7th. As the primary hospital for patients flown in directly from the battlefield and backup for the two frontline hospitals in Beersheba and Ashkelon, Shamir Medical Center activated a mass casualty triage protocol to receive a considerable number of patients quickly and efficiently with diverse and severe injuries. Shamir Medical Center has expanded its ER and surgical facilities with additional medical teams to provide adequate care for the multitude of victims, establish an information center for patients' families to allow them close contact with their loved ones, initiate a national center for the conjoined treatment of PTSD, combining a psychological and psychiatric treatment for groundbreaking hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And they have also treated hundreds and hundreds of patients since October 12th and has 75 of their doctors in combat in the South. The Pulmonary Institute at Shamir treats 4,600 respiratory and lung patients each year, providing counseling for the inpatient and surgical wards, and performing assessments of high-risk patients before surgery. The Institute conducts advanced research in lung physiology and sleep medicine and clinical studies of pharmaceutical companies and non-invasive respiratory best practices among hospitalized patients. The updated Institute of Pulmonary Functions and Diseases will be fully equipped with the state-of-the-art equipment and highly trained medical staff to handle the significant increase in pulmonary diseases patients visiting the hospital from the start of the pandemic. Donor support ensures all patients receive the best care when they need it most. We will move on to Hadassah Hospital. Hadassah Hospital opened 2 emergency units, the underground hospital at the Gandel Rehabilitation Center. This is scheduled to open in the spring of 2024, and the emergency hospital department in the Sarah Davidson Tower in Ein Kerem. Hadassah Hospital is Jerusalem's only level 1 trauma center and one of only 6 such centers in all of Israel, treating many of the most wounded patients and sharing helpful information with other Israeli hospitals. Hadassah has treated hundreds of patients and estimate 1,200 of the 1,500 patients treated in the hospital throughout Israel will require long-term rehabilitative treatment. Due to this dire need for comprehensive rehabilitation services for the thousands of injured in the war, Hadassah has accelerated their efforts to complete the construction of the Gandel Rehabilitation Center on Mount Scopus, to quadruple the hospital's capacity to rehabilitate patients holistically. The underground hospital in the Gandel Rehabilitation Center is being built precisely for the circumstances of today. The CHW board just approved a new project for the Gandel Rehabilitation Center, and is proud that we are providing a new large hydrotherapy pool to assist in the rehabilitation and recovery of soldiers and citizens. More details about this new project will be announced in the coming months. CHW completed the PCCCU project, which is the Pediatric Critical Care Cardiac Care Unit, providing 4 isolation rooms. The new state-of-the-art PCCU is the only one of its kind in Jerusalem. For these infants, precise diagnosis and immediate advanced treatment are critical. Congenital heart defects comprise the most common type of birth defect. And currently, the global incidence of congenital heart disease at birth has been estimated at 8 to 12 per 1,000 births. This is very significant because Jerusalem has the highest birth rate of all cities in the Western world. This means the number of babies born in Israel with heart defects is overwhelming. So having a world-renowned PCCU is critical to save lives. We will move on to social services. Mehel Selo Forum that CHW supports we have partnered with MSF to sponsor 4 canines this year. Each canine costs $30,000 Canadian to train as protective animal and companionship. Mehel Selo Forum has made some major strides with their canines. Women are now able to board public transportation with their dogs and can shop in any of the Ofer Mall chains with their dogs. An amazing accomplishment that means these women have the freedom of movement. Unfortunately, these canines are needed now more than ever. With the additional stress and fear brought on by war, families are really struggling with domestic violence, and women are trapped in unpredictable, dangerous environments. Franny's Fund. Thanks to the support from our SOS summer campaign, Franny's Fund services are now available at locations across Canada: Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa. The Treehouse Vancouver Child and Youth Advocacy Center in Vancouver, and in Calgary, the Luna Child and Youth Advocacy Center and Homefront. In Toronto, Boost Child and Youth Advocacy Center. In Ottawa, Counseling and Family Services Ottawa, and in Montreal, the Marie Vincent Foundation. This year, the children's supported by Franny Funds will also receive candy and toys donations from the CHW Calgary Center Annual Toy Drive and CHW Calgary Hanukkah Candy Fundraiser. Nahalal Youth Village, the CHW Nahalal Youth Village through WIZO. In January, while Lisa and I were at Nahalal, we attended a ribbon cutting for the new graduate housing dormitory, which provides a welcoming environment for students who have moved on to their RDF service and now have nowhere to live when they're on leave. As CHW's project to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of Nahalal, we are supporting the dairy farm expansion and cheese-making kitchen, which we got to visit firsthand while in Israel. Tending to the 150 cows and calves is an important part of the CHW Nahalal experience, and youth are involved in milk production and care of the cows throughout the day. Working in the cow sheds, youth learn important values and skills for life, such as responsibility, diligence, dedication, leadership, and the essentials of working hands-on. Nahalal is so special. Not only do the students learn valuable agricultural skills, but the U Village also sells their milk to Truva, Israel's leading dairy company. And this instructs the students about self-sustaining industry as well. Canada supports of the dairy farm expansion. WIZO has been at the forefront of serving women, children, elderly, and displaced communities throughout Israel since the outbreak of the war, as Anita already shared with you earlier. So I won't go into that in detail. Over the past year, each week, the Leah Zev Shulman and Joseph Zunia Shulman Therapeutic Program at CHW Hadassah receives referrals from the Child Welfare Authority. While some of the children continue to live at home during treatment, other children are placed in CHW Hadassah's family units and dormitories because their home environment is unsafe and unstable. A parent's involvement is inevitably decreases when their child is staying at a dorm. So this program was created to ensure the children stay in contact with their parents through their specialized therapy sessions and family excursions, while also receiving the emotional, social, and educational support they need to thrive. This program was previously known as Healing Broken Families. Safety net. WIZO is supporting 140 women and 250 children who have left domestic violence shelters and are trying to rebuild their independent lives. Their priority is to ensure that these women do not return to their violent spouses. To do that, it is important to cultivate opportunity for women to have economic independence, and therefore WIZO can help break the cycle of violence. 160 children are cared for while their mothers receive hand-on tools to rebuild their lives, and 120 dedicated and committed volunteers trained and supported by WIZO staff in Israel and CHW. The essential kits are provided for women leaving a WIZO shelter. The kit provides basic necessities like small appliances, clothing, school supplies, linens, kitchen utensils, and other household items needed to maintain a decent home. The kits are tailored to the specific needs of each family to help them start fresh in a new family. The Respite Camp program is to support the continued economic independence of at-risk women. CHW is funding summer and holiday day camps to provide children with fun and safe supervision so that women can continue working while their children are cared for. As well, CHW funded a 10-day overnight summer camp experience for at-risk children from WIZO youth villages. Impact investing. Social space. Last year, during our inaugural Journey for Impact trip to Israel, we launched our first round of social impact investing. Each investment not only empowers the early stage community, but supports a sustainable future for the next generation of small businesses in Israel. Last year, we awarded investments to Tech19 and Social Space TLV, Tel Aviv. Social Space TLV is a social, innovation, and education hub that sparks discussion around human trafficking and gender-based violence. Established in 2019 on the former site of the Pussycat Strip Club, Social Space TLV now engages visitors on site through its educational program. Social Space TLV continues to convert abandoned buildings across Israel into spaces that encourage discussion and numerous educational experiences. From January to August 2023, there were over 49,000 visitors, which is a 25% increase from 2022, and income increased 36% during the same period. This enabled the renovation, the loan enabled the renovation of a workroom, which created a space to spread the message about social space, recruit volunteers, and host new associations. According to the recent survey, the tours has significantly affected the perception, response, and intentions surrounding paid sex services. Realizing the regular activities would not take place as normal, Social Space wasted no time in reappropriating itself for the circumstances. Beginning already on the 10th of October, just 3 days after the massacres in the South, Social Space opened its Kikar Atarim location in Tel Aviv to those with the greatest need. It allocated the former Pussycat Strip Club for displaced groups from the South. Every day, approximately 200 people take part in community gatherings, children's activities, and there is space for those whose employment or businesses have been affected with getting help. And they have even provided some pampering to those who are displaced. They donated their hostels, which is 29 rooms, to adolescents in their preparatory military year, known as the National Service Program, who are not recognized by the IDF as soldiers yet. And most have nowhere to go because their families' homes have been evacuated. Social space provided the first floor as a distribution center for donations going to families and soldiers, and they're utilizing their other locations for similar activities. Tech 19. Tech 19 was established to provide quality, high-tech employment opportunities to women in geographic periphery of Israel. Tech 19 provides technical and innovative solutions to fintech, healthcare, software companies, and other electronic companies, including prototyping, software, and hardware development. The women employed received skill training and on-the-job support. They also become role models in their community, acting as an inspiration to younger generation while ensuring economic stability for the family. The loan that we gave them allowed Tech 19 to double the number of employees from 12 to 25, expanded the business to additional fields such as tech support and REVIT, which Rivet, increased customer base such as ASUS, Centrix, Pincus, and ICL, provided the infrastructure to develop 2 new products, one called FlyZone and one called Queen D. They enabled Tech 19 to move into their own office and also to provide for technical training sessions and tech mentorship. As a result of the war, Tech 19 has had to make some changes. They are experiencing some challenges due to employees being called to military duty, projects were put on hold, and funding that has been postponed due to financial restrictions due to the war. We are hopeful that in time, Tech 19 will be able to recover and continue employment for at-risk women in the South. And thank you. And I call upon our CEO, Lisa Cole-Kotler, to give the CEO's report.
So, as my father always said, there's a reason why there's an eraser on the end of a pencil, because we all make mistakes. So, on behalf of my team, we apologize to Anita for the error in her presentation. The videos will be located and they will be distributed on Monday with our greatest apologies. You will get to see the videos. I'm going to highlight for you month by month what CHW managed to accomplish since this time last year. Going back to November of 2022, we launched our first Journey for Impact trip, and we had 42 participants in Israel. It was an incredible experience, which we've detailed in our aura in the spring. Through that experience, our participants watched the live birth of a calf at CHW Nahalal Youth Village, which has now turned me off eating meat forever, and was an incredible experience. We also launched our inaugural social impact investments, which Lynn detailed, and CHW became the first organization to invest in Israel through a gender lens. We toured the Pulmonary Institute at Shamir Medical Center, and we cut the ribbon opening the department for the hospital. Thanks to a very successful 2022 SOS campaign, CHW was recognized as a finalist through Charity Village as having the best fundraising campaign under 20 staff, and received an award for that. As well, as Lynn mentioned, we funded our first canine protection dog in 2022 for Michal Sella Forum, and we named the dog Maple. The fall edition of the Aura magazine included our strategic plan, which is our plan for the next 5 years, and is available to review on our website in detail. In November, Lynn Gilman was installed as the 26th national president. In December of 2022, we launched the Empower Bright Minds campaign and raised an unprecedented $142,000 for all of our educational projects, providing funding for programs at HAC, Netanya Tech High School, and the 2 youth villages we support at WIZO, as well as through CYJ, programs that we support through CYJ. We also released our first annual impact report, which highlighted all of the impact that CHW made in the previous fiscal year. In January, Lynn and I went to Israel and attended WIZO's More in Tel Aviv. We also met with and had several meetings with Canadians living in Israel, some of whom have since made very generous donations. We visited potential social impact opportunities and started planning for this year's Journey for Impact trip that was supposed to take place October 23rd to the 30th, which unfortunately had to be postponed due to the war, and will be rescheduled when it's safe to do so. In February, CHW launched the Work of Heart online art auction, and which featured over 100 curated pieces of artwork and raised over $80,000. In March, we launched our Aura magazine again. Our spring issue on the cover featured the top of the Azrieli Towers, drone footage taken during the Journey for Impact. And we highlighted in the magazine our annual campaign. This was the second year of Breathe Life, Give Love, which has raised so far to date over 2.2 million Canadian, and 70% of our 3.2 million goal for the Pulmonary Institute and the Pediatric Cardiac Critical Care Unit. As Lynn said, we've completed the Pediatric Cardiac Critical Care Unit, and the board just approved a brand new project for the Gandil Rehab Hospital, and more details will be forthcoming in the next few months. As we transition out of the war, CHW will pick a new project for Shamir Medical Center as well, which will be focused on rehabilitation and recovery for citizens and soldiers that have been injured during the war, and we will bundle our existing and remaining commitment of funds into that new project. In May, we launched Fashion Blooms in centers across the country, Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto and Calgary, raising over $100,000 and engaging a new generation of supporters. What we thought was going to be an event that would only attract the younger generation ended up attracting both the younger and older generation, and became a multi-generational event that we look forward to launching again in 2024 and hosting it in 4 cities, multi-generational fashion shows. We also held a complimentary breast cancer awareness webinar with Dr. Paula Gordon. It was extremely well attended, very well received, and provided important information about women's breast health. In June, CHW Toronto's Tzedakah chapter celebrated the 20th anniversary of At Our Table event, which since its conception has raised a record $2.5 million for CHW. And at this past year's event, they raised an unprecedented $370,000. Also in June, I had the pleasure of accompanying Lily Ben-Ami across Canada, where we spoke in Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver before various age groups about the MSF and their Michal Canine program, as well as Michal Watch program. We met with various government officials because one of our strategic goals in the coming years is to bring the canine program to Canada. This past summer, CHW held its third annual SOS campaign, raising $570,000, which was up from the previous year of $450,000. We were very fortunate to have support from some key social media influencers, survivors of domestic violence, including Karen Gosby, Amy Kaufman, and Lee Clark, who helped to raise awareness about the campaign and CHW's commitment to combat domestic violence, both in Canada and in Israel. Multiple events were held across the country. Various walks were held in Toronto, in Calgary, in Montreal, and in Vancouver. As well, CHW made a commitment in the previous fiscal year to take Franny's Fund national. And as Lynn mentioned in her presentation, funds are now available in 5 major cities across the country. In September, CHW launched its first national garage sale, and proceeds were to support victims of domestic violence. The sales were held in Calgary, Ottawa, Montreal, London, Toronto, and Victoria. While the events were extremely well attended and we did raise a lot of awareness, including media attention, there were, as well as receiving significant donations and items to sell, there were very high operating costs for this event, and in year 2, the model is being tweaked. As well, we launched our first mezuzah shop with the help of artist Deborah Satok. Mezuzahs, one-of-a-kind mezuzahs are available for sale online, which includes the opportunity to purchase custom-made mezuzahs, which can be a beautiful gift for weddings, birth of a child, or Hanukkah. We held a 10-year end tax savings charitable strategy webinar with Mark Halpern of wealthinsurance.com, also well attended, and provided a wealth of information on how to make a charitable tax gift that's before the end of the year. We were fortunate to have author Sherry Siegel Glick, daughter-in-law of Marcia Glick, hold a webinar called The Skinny, where she shared, very graciously shared her personal story and battle with anorexia. So October 7th, I was coming off a plane in Morocco only to turn on my phone and find out that Israel was at war. CHW had spent the last few weeks preparing for an end-of-year campaign for youth mental health at our education projects, and the team spun into action to redirect these funds and launch an emergency appeal for Israel, which we did so by October 8th. Since that time, we have raised over $2.4 million. 100% of the proceeds are going to Israel, and we've already transferred over $2.2 million to 3 of our partners on the ground in Israel: WIZO, Hadassah Hospital, and Shamir Medical Center. In addition to the funds raised, we've had several fundraisers, and these items are available for sale on our website currently. We have mezuzahs available, peace pins, mahjong cards. Calgary is holding a candy sale, as well as our cards and other shop items. All the proceeds will be going to the emergency campaign. We also have 2 new cookbooks that have been donated. 100% of the proceeds will be going to Hadassah Hospital. They'll be released in the coming weeks, hopefully in time for Hanukkah. They'll make a great gift, and they'll be going on to our shop very shortly. We've also had several events across the country with proceeds all going to the emergency campaign. And you can see all the different events that have been held, including an event which took place this past week on Monday night in Vancouver. Anita spoke at the event, and we were fortunate to partner with the Vancouver Book Festival. Chef Adina Sussman was there to talk about her new cookbook, Shabbat. So we were busy also this past year trying to secure more national partners. We graciously received a gift from Cubic of signage for all of our offices. It was a gift in kind donation that has saved us a lot of money, and any of our step and repeat signage, banner signage, and so on was donated by Cubic. Food Dudes and Lavender Grace. Lavender Grace is a decor flower business. Food Dudes is a catering business. Both are located in Toronto and have recently partnered with CHW, providing discounts to our members, as well as they are going to be donating a portion of proceeds to CHW for our projects. And they are now our preferred event suppliers in Toronto, providing preferred pricing for any CHW events. There we go. CHW was busy in the media, and we were featured in the National Post and the Financial Post, featuring in response to a press release that Lynn and I sent and was picked up by the National Post, demanding the release of the 240 hostages held in Gaza. Lily Ben-Ami, when she spoke in Vancouver, the Jewish Independent picked up the story and featured it in their paper. CJN featured a story about our work with Franny's Fund. The National Garage Sale was featured on Calgary CTV News. The Suburban in Montreal featured stories about the rise of domestic violence in Canada and how CHW has been empowering victims of domestic violence, as well as they did a story on the 49th anniversary of the Montreal Golf Tournament. And CBC did a story about the 14th printing of A Treasure for My Daughter, a cookbook that's available through Montreal. There we go. So what's next? So this past week, as you heard, Anita, Lynn, and I toured across Canada and met with many young supporters, and hopefully the opportunity to create new chapters both in Calgary and in Toronto of young women who are looking to get involved and want to do something to support Israel. We have a special webinar that's taking place next Wednesday featuring Dr. Oznat Levitzin-Korach, Director General and CEO of Shamir Medical Center, as well as Dr. Karen Dunyas Barak, head of the PTSD program at the Siegel Center for Hyperbaric Medicine. That takes place on it's next Wednesday. So it's November 15th. We have another complimentary book webinar taking place on November 22nd with author Sharon Neese-Arbus, and the Q&A will be moderated by Rebecca Eckler. All are welcome, and the invitation went out on Friday. This year, in January, you'll receive your Aura magazine. Oops, I think this is the next slide. Yes. So you'll receive your Aura magazine in January. It will be a combined Aura as well as annual report. A decision was made to combine them in order to save costs. In February, we'll have our next art auction, a work of art, and Fashion Blooms, as I said, will take place in May and June. The dates are being split in centers across the country. As we transition, hopefully very soon, out of the war, there will be a transition from our campaign, emergency campaign, into a campaign that will focus on recovery and rehabilitation for the soldiers and citizens. So I just wanted to highlight some of the strategic plan accomplishments that we've made since we launched the strategic plan last year. So in terms of empowering women, CHW has been able to, through our social impact investing, help to provide employment opportunities for women in Israel. We also have, through the Canine Protection Program, through MSF, been able to provide protection for women to break the cycle of violence and give them a feeling of safety and security to gain employment. Through WIZO and the Safety Net Program, we're also helping to break the cycle of violence to give women the opportunities for economic independence and empower them to ensure that they don't go back to their violent relationships. We've been, through events like Fashion Blooms, creating connections between multi-generations, which has always been so much a part of the lifeblood of this organization, and helping to grow leaders for the future through the mentorship program that we held last spring online with the Blender, the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship from HAC, as well as engaging students through Jewish schools in Vancouver and in Toronto, and through CYJ, getting them involved and having them join us to volunteer. Our next pillar for our strategic plan is connections between Israel and Canada. So one of the strong connections that we made was hiring an incredible director for our Israel office. And for those who have not yet met Sharon Stern, she's fantastic. And she's creating connections every day between our two offices. Through our strategic partnerships in Israel and opportunities like today, where we've brought Anita Friedman here to Canada, Lily Ben-Ami in the spring, we're helping to strengthen our connections with our partners in Israel. We also created a strategic partnership with Line of Judah Israel to help provide funds for our SOS campaign in summer of 2022, and part of those funds helped to support the WIZO Safety Net Program. We've also been working very hard to strengthen our relationship with diplomats, both in Israel and Canada, building relationships with the Canadian ambassador to Israel, as well as attending various events here in Canada through the Consul General and the Israeli Embassy. The third pillar is increasing impact. So through our social impact investing, through the programs that we're supporting both in Israel and Canada, as you could see in our presentations, we've been continuing to increase our impact in every possible way. We're also reducing obstacles to giving by making it easier for donors to either make their gifts online, using e-transfers and the TAP Square methods of payment. This all makes things so much easier for our donors. Growing our volunteer base. As I mentioned at the beginning when I first spoke, we've increased our donor base by 1,000 donors since our last AGM, but our volunteers base is growing as well. We have volunteers who have approached us to be placed in chapters in Toronto, as well as volunteers who are looking for chapters in Vancouver. And based on the parlor events we've held this week, I suspect there'll be a lot more in the days to come. We are also engaging new opportunities through campuses. Given the rise of global anti-Semitism, as I mentioned, this is a great opportunity to be engaging students at universities to get involved with us. Our Director of Donor Relations, Volunteer Engagement and Outreach will be reaching out to students in our Canadian campuses and trying to find ways to engage them to get involved with CHW. As well as through Fashion Blooms, we were able to engage some of our corporate partners to volunteer for us. We recently had a group of 11 volunteers join us in our Toronto office from the company Coty, and they took lists of names of potential donors to call and solicit for support for the emergency campaign. So we're looking at every possible way to engage new people. Raising awareness and raising awareness and promoting our CHW brand. Again, through all of our media partnerships, through all of the media exposure that we've had, through partnerships like one that's coming up in the next week, where we're partnered with this a group that's providing an installation in Toronto, a Shabbat table to highlight the 240 hostages. All of these provide opportunities for us to be able to raise awareness about our organization and the work we do. We've increased our social media presence. We have far more followers since last year. And every time we boost an ad, we're getting more click-throughs and interest in the organization. We continue to promote through public education about domestic violence in our SOS campaign. We've had ads on subways and other media, print ads, as well as billboards. As well as the day schools. We've created partnerships with day schools through our annual campaign, as well as our SOS campaign. And day schools are getting involved and providing social media feedback. It's been great to be able to partner with them as well. And lastly, through our work with celebrities and influencers, it's helping to raise awareness on social media about CHW. That is my report. Thank you.
Hi there. My name, last but not least, but this will be quick, but very important. My name is Elena Latsky. I'm the immediate past national president, and I chair the nominations committee. Committee members are Lynn Gilman, national president, and Lisa Kotler, CEO. As a result of changes made in recent years to the CHW bylaw and policy manual, we now have national board members serving for terms of 1, 2, or 3 years in length. This change provides us with assured continuity of seasoned board members, as well as the ability to bring on new board members. From our current board, we have 2 members that are concluding their service and stepping down, Stephanie Rusin of Vancouver and Jenny Blitz of Toronto. And we thank them for their service and dedication to CHW as national board members. I am very pleased to announce the following slate of national directors for this year. Lynn Gilman of Ottawa, continuing as national president for 1 year, followed by 2 years as immediate past president. Myself, Elena Latsky of Toronto, continuing as immediate past national president for 1 year. Tova Train of Toronto, continuing as vice president for 1 year, followed by 2 years as national president and 2 years as immediate past. Which I can tell you, Tova, is the best job. Ariella Schachter of Montreal, continuing for a 1 year term. Barb Rosenstein of Toronto, continuing for a 3 year term. Dorothy Hansen of Calgary, continuing for a 1 year term. Marcia Glick of Kitchener-Waterloo, continuing for a 2 year term, 1 as national treasurer and 1 year for transition. Linda Senzelet of Ottawa, continuing for a 2 year term, 1 as national secretary and 1 year transition. We have 2 new board members stepping up. Shauna Middleman of Toronto for a 1 year term. And Jeanette Hoffman of Edmonton for a 1 year term. I'll now make a motion to elect the above named directors. As you've been reminded, so it is the outgoing national board that will vote on this in person and via Zoom. So on Zoom, please indicate your vote in the chat. I move to approve the slate of CHW national directors as presented for November 2023 to November 2024. May I have a seconder? Marcia Glick, thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion? Don't see any. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Or abstentions? Thank you. The motion is carried unanimously. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all our national directors, both outgoing and incoming, for taking on this very, very important responsibility. I get verklempt just saying it, in this role, in your role for CHW. Thank you.
Before I put a motion for adjournment, I would like to thank Anita Friedman again for coming to Canada, spending the last week traveling across Canada, inspiring so many young women and men who attended our events. And on behalf of CHW and the board of directors and all the professional staff, we have a little gift for you. So if you could come up. I feel bad because I saw your luggage and I know how much room you have, but we'll have a picture. So thank you very much for coming here. Something very Canadian. So the first thing I'd like to do is to put forth a motion of adjournment, and then I would like to assemble for a photo. So I move to adjourn the AGM. Reminding those that are voting are only members, but that is the new board. So may I have a seconder to adjourn the meeting? Shauna Middleman, her very first. As a seconder. I'm going to say all those in favor, raise your hand. And if someone abstains, please let me know. I will be taking care of them tomorrow. All those in favor. Any disapprove of this? Say no. Nope. Any abstentions? It's passed. We will adjourn, and I would like to assemble everybody for a photo, and then we will also do some with the incoming and outgoing board.